The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings? They're not under consideration. So, this past week there's been a lot more of the same general fuckery that's been going on in the United States, and as much as I apologize on the off chance there are international listeners, I'm sorry guys. I'm here, this is where I am, this is where the stuff that's going on affects me. This is what I have to talk about. So, I promise I'll try to get back to doing more universal content soon. I'll just hopefully shit will stop being so stupid here. But anyway, so to the much amazement of nobody, some really dumb shit has gone on this week. One of the first things being the FBI issued an internal document, which was subsequently leaked to the public. And I, to this point, have not heard anything, where they're trying to say it was false information or it was any kind of a bullshit statement. But the long and the short of the leaked documents is it was a bulletin or a memo or whatever you want to call it issued by the FBI people in charge, itemizing items for flagging people as potential domestic terrorists, whether it be through assorted assortments of things. And there's this long list they sent out with pictures that are things that could be land you on a domestic terrorist watch list. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of this material that was listed basically says anyone in this country is now a domestic terrorist. And a lot of it goes down to, of a lot of these things, the so-called conspiracy theorists and particularly the more independent sort of Americans, and some of them are right-leaning, a lot of them are, like me, very centrist, and just want to be left the fuck alone. But people that, support things like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, all the things that basically say the government needs to just stay out of average people's lives, and they are the ones that are willing to do something about it if it comes down to it. Now, these are not people that are actively trying to, say, destroy the American way of life. These are people that want to preserve the principles the country was founded upon. And some of the things on this list, could get an average history class from when I was a kid, and probably not anymore. They don't really teach history anymore from what I can tell. But things like the Betsy Ross flag, the Don't Tread on Me flag, anybody that's got like the Mullen Lob statement, come and take them. The list goes on and on. Don't tread on me. People that have social media accounts quoting the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, or quoting Thomas Jefferson or any of the other founding fathers. People that support the Second Amendment. People that fly things with like Spartan symbolism on them. People that fly the blacked out American flag. They're all listed as potential things to identify domestic terrorists. And this really points to part of a problem. One of the things that a lot of the guys that are prepping for the potential for a civil war and all these things where the government is identifying them as domestic terrorists, they're literally, without getting into the ridiculous amount of overreach by the FBI in terms of, it used to be a lot less common from what I can tell, or at least they were more secretive about it. But talking about things where the FBI fucked up and killed innocent people, things like Ruby Ridge, can get you labeled as a domestic terrorist because they're saying those are martyrs for the cause, and they're being used as rally cries for, basically because all these people that think the FBI has gotten ridiculously out of hand, they're overreaching their boundaries, they're not doing what they were originally intended for, and they are abusing their power because they have deemed anyone that doesn't like them as a threat to the country and to national security. So it's realistically, everything they've done is just proving all the people that said they were a problem right. Because you can't say, oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist anymore when they leak documents saying that you are being targeted. Now, who wasn't targeted in any of those documents, BLM, Antifa, any of the people that basically spend the better part of 2020 burning down cities in this country, and regardless of what excuse they were using it for, they were a much graver threat to the American way of life and to this country than any of these guys that just want to live out in the country and be left the fuck alone. They're not out destroying cities. They're not terrorizing anybody. They want to be left the fuck alone, and they want the government to do what it's supposed to do instead of what it's actually doing. But yeah, wanting that apparently makes you potentially a domestic terrorist, because you are, for lack of a better way of putting it, a threat to them, because you question their validity, their authority, and you don't believe they should exist, and you don't think they are acting as they were supposed to do. They're not living up to what they were meant to do. It's all power grabs and ridiculous shit. And so yeah, it's a threat to them. They've released this list saying, yeah, pretty much, I mean, let's face it. If you're listening to me, there's probably a good chance you've done something that qualifies you to be on this list, as fucking ridiculous as that is. Even just talking about these things could wind up putting you on a watch list to potentially be a domestic terrorist. Me, I've made my peace with it. I've probably been on a watch list for a lot longer than this. But now it's, kind of validating to know, yeah, hey, look, we were right. The feds are actually saying that we are a threat to the security of the nation, because we don't want to let them do what they want willy-nilly and unchecked. And in another piece of fuckery that's bound to be an issue, they have what the idiot in the White House has put forward as the Inflation Reduction Act, which literally has nothing in it to actually reduce inflation. It is going to be more taxing and more reckless government spending, with all the tax breaks and incentives for all these green companies, so the government can basically put your money, my money, all the taxpayer money into the pockets of their patrons, the corporations that bought them when they got into office. And it's like $430 billion. And one of the things is they have all these subsidies for, green energy, which is a complete misnomer to begin with. I mean, just to begin with, just starting with the batteries for like electric vehicles and all these other things are horrible for the environment. There's nothing green about them. They're not using fossil fuels, but they leach toxic minerals into the ground and poison groundwater, kill animals, kill plants, they're poison. They're deadly. But these people have been brainwashed into saying, oh, fossil fuels are bad and everything else must be better because it's not fossil fuels. There's no fire. Fire is scary. So, yeah, there's going to put all kinds of all these subsidies into people's pockets based on your tax dollars, my tax dollars being taken. And they tried to push it saying it's going to be, oh, well, what it is it's going to tax businesses and it's going to tax the rich. Basically, the White House has lied about literally everything since before the current sitting administration was elected. They have not kept a single campaign promise they made, other than the fact that they said they were going to unroll all of the Cheetos bills and laws and every executive order he put into place. They canceled all of them, including the ones that were good for people. And then they bitched when they couldn't push the shit that they canceled back through, like what they did with the insulin. They try and push it back through and then bitch that there's a problem. They manufactured the problem and then bitch when they can't solve it. And so they're doing that. And they're saying, oh, well, we're going to tax all these corporations. They're going to be the ones paying the bill. No, they're not. The bill itself included all kinds of language for things like Venmo and electronic transfers. And they're adding like another 80,000 fucking IRS agents. And they're targeting like, PayPal and Venmo and digital transfer. They're not doing this shit to go after billionaires, to go after the wealthy. They don't need 87,000 new fucking IRS agents to audit the very small number of existing billionaires in the world. 87,000 IRS agents is so the middle class can be picked apart for any kind of oversight, because most of us in the middle class or lower upper or upper lower class, not lower upper, But, us poor motherfuckers, yeah, we can't deliberately commit tax fraud. We may accidentally commit tax fraud, and you better bet your ass they're going to find a reason to threaten you with jail, threaten you with, loss of life and liberty over some petty-ass money that they really didn't do anything to deserve in the first place. But they're going to make sure they get their cut. Otherwise, you're going to jail. And, billionaires, millionaires, rich motherfuckers, they don't use Venmo. They don't use PayPal. They don't use all the methods for transferring money that the government is trying to target to make sure they get a cut out of all of it. They're not trying to, they're doing this so they can take more out of your pockets and make you more dependent on them, because you're not going to be able to support yourself. You're not going to be able to afford to live your life. And it's not by accident. This bill is going to do literally nothing to combat inflation. There's not a single fucking thing in it that is going to combat inflation. You cannot fix a problem that you created by doing the same shit you did to create the problem in the first place. And if you look at every other country in the world that has ridiculous amounts of inflation, it's because of two basic factors. They printed a shit ton of money with nothing to back it, and they have ridiculous deficit spending by the powers. Now, for some odd reason, in the United States, when we have ridiculous amounts of inflation and a recession, regardless of the fact that the administration refuses to acknowledge that it's a recession, we have 2 consecutive quarters of GDP loss. I don't give a fuck what the talking head that bobbles around and has to reference everything for pre-fed answers out of a notebook on the podium. The press secretary of the United States, who is the worst kind of a fucking, hired for just saying, oh, look, we ticked all the boxes. We have a black lesbian that is our press secretary. The fact that she can't barely string together a coherent sentence any better than the president if she's not reading from a pre-approved list of questions where she can flip through her fucking binder to the prepared answers, and she still can't even read them well. But I digress. That's something that's completely irrelevant. Like I said, I'm a firm believer that I want the best person possible to do the job, not somebody that makes you feel special, but that you hired somebody that wouldn't normally get the job. They wouldn't normally get the job because they're not fucking qualified for it. They're not good enough to do it, and they shouldn't be doing the fucking job. But I digress. So this same administration who cobbled together this fucking pathetic excuse for a bill and then said, oh, well, we're doing this to combat inflation. They want you to believe that reckless government deficit spending and printing money that's not backed by anything in every other country in the world, that leads to inflation, but not here. Here, inflation is strictly a matter of corporate greed. The companies are posting record profits. That's why there's all this inflation, because they're greedy. No, the two really don't kind of go together, because you see, if they're taking in more money but the money's worth less, it's not record profits. It's bigger numbers that mean they carry less significance, because it's not like it's just your buying power and my buying power that's gone down. It's everyone that's trying to use this same dollar that is only backed by the whole, hey, we promise this is worth money. There's not a physical asset that is tied to our money. Ever since we left the gold standard years and years and years ago, our money has basically been worth something because we said it was, and it was a commodity, it was an asset, and it's not anymore. We're getting away from that every day. The rest of the globe really doesn't give a fuck. More and more, the United States has just become irrelevant on this global scale, which is kind of funny because you look at things going on in a lot of other countries, and they have this idyllic concept of the American dream and our freedoms and our liberties, and a lot of fucked up misinformation, too. I mean, you get a lot of these global woke motherfuckers that want to sit here and talk about, oh, well, you got all these problems because da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, nobody fucking asked you. If your country's so great, stay there and mind your fucking business. We don't care what you think. But yeah, so back to bitching about this bill in the IRS. So There's money in the budget to give another 87,000 IRS agents out there. And I say about, how we're all fucking going to wind up getting audited, because we probably are. Anybody that has anything resembling taxation as theft anywhere in the world on their social medias is probably going to wind up getting visited from Uncle Sam, and they're going to do unfriendly things to you. But something else to take into account, the IRS also has money in their budget. They have weapons. The IRS is a bunch of accountants, according to how they try and market it. Why do they have a fucking SWAT team? And it's not like they have a gun or two to protect agents. They have like 4,500 firearms in their budget and money. Why does the IRS need a SWAT team? It's so when you decide you don't want to pay your taxes because they're not representing you and you feel like you're being robbed, that they can come forcibly take you away and throw you in jail. It seems a little sketch to me. I mean, but what do I know? I'm just some potentially labeled domestic terrorist, and by listening to me, you're probably on a watch list now. Bum, bum, bum. I think I'm going to put a disclaimer in at the beginning of the episode. Just, yeah, this might be a good one to skip if you want to avoid potentially being in trouble someday. But in some lighter news, in case you've been living under a rock, a little while back here, Brittany Gaynor, who is a WNBA player who was very vocal about protesting against the American national anthem at the WNBA game. She was going to stay in the locker room. She refused to stand during the anthem. And, that's her right to say, I don't want to do this. But, basically spent the last couple of years trashing the country. And for frame of reference, has a lot of privilege for somebody that is in a league that basically nobody gives a shit about. Wound up going over to Russia to play basketball. The story was kind of like, oh, well, we don't make enough money here, so we have to go there to play, or some shit like that. Prior to leaving the United States, the entire team was told the Russian laws are very different than they are in America. You need to be prepared to follow them so you don't get in trouble. And they were apparently told on multiple occasions not to bring any illicit substances into Russia. And she decided to bring some THC cartridges with her, which is explicitly outlawed by the Russian government. And she was, according to her teammates, told multiple times not to bring that shit. Well, surprise, surprise, gets caught trying to go through customs with her little THC wax pen or whatever it was, gets arrested. Now, regardless of where you stand on the matter of legalization of marijuana and marijuana-related products in terms of THC and things like that, the simple fact of the matter is she went to another sovereign country and knowingly and willingly chose to disregard their laws. And she got caught, and she was arrested. And she basically admitted to she took a plea. She copped a plea and got sentenced to 9 years in Russian jail. Well, prior to that, first she tried playing the whole, well, I'm a basketball star, and Russia didn't care. Then she tried playing the race card. Russia didn't care. She tried playing the I'm gay card. Russia didn't care. They don't give a shit about that stuff over there nearly to the same degree that they do here. So every card out of her privilege playbook was immediately thrown out. Now, I think 9 years for a little bit of fucking THC wax is utterly ridiculous. But on the other hand, I also think I'm not going to Russia any fucking time soon. And if I did, I damn sure wouldn't bring something that could land me in Russian prison with me. Why? Because I don't have that sense of entitlement and sense of privilege where laws are for other people and not for me. And I don't have a bunch of things that I think I can wave around to get my way when I choose not to obey the law of the land that I'm in. Now, the thing that really rubs me wrong about her little situation and why I laughed when she got sentenced is after basically 2 years of talking about what a shit country this place is and how she didn't have to show any respect to the country because the country's not respecting her, her first reaction is to go whining to the government, you need to get me out of here, I need to be helped, I can't be in jail for this, this isn't fair. Whereas it is fair because you were told not to do something and you did it anyway. And now you're being held accountable for your actions. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the sentencing, but I also don't agree that the U.S. government should be doing anything to try and get her sentence lifted or banned. Well, there are still thousands, if not tens of thousands, of American citizens in jail for petty-ass weed crimes. A lot of them were put there by laws put in place by the sitting president, or when the sitting vice president was a state prosecutor putting people away for petty-ass weed crimes to make her conviction numbers look better. So now these hypocrites, because they have I hesitate to say celebrity, but somebody who ticks a bunch of boxes on the woke agenda of, oh, well, competitive athlete, person of color, non-heteronormative relationship, being prosecuted by our country's enemy. We should do everything we can to get her released. No, I have a problem with the hypocrisy behind it all. Like I said, she played a game of fuck around and find out. She took her chances. She did the crime. She needs to serve her fucking sentence. The fact that the U.S. this current federal administration decided to offer up an exchange for her and for somebody who got literally no coverage. They did ask for 2 people back, which is the only good thing I can say about this little fucking offer they made up. Is there's a Marine that was arrested in Russia and accused of being a spy, and he's been in jail a lot longer. But you don't see the news talking about that at all, other than very minor mention here and there. It's all about, this poor persecuted fucking, pothead, basically. I mean, she couldn't leave the fucking vape home for 3 months while she went to go make money playing basketball. She had to have it, even though she was told if she got caught with it, she was going to fucking jail. It's not like she didn't know that was a possibility. She just didn't think it really was serious. She didn't think it applied to her. She thought she was special. So they were willing to trade a Russian criminal that's in prison in the United States. The guy's known as the fucking merchant of death. He funnels weapons to actual terrorist groups, not like terrorist groups like, me. Because, like I said, I'm probably on a watch list now because I do state on a fairly regular basis that the federal government is overstepping their bounds. They have become a bloated, useless bureaucracy, and the FBI is overstepping its boundaries as what it was intended for. The ATF and the IRS should be abolished because they're fucking worthless, useless, parasitic organizations. And, yeah, I've said these things before. I'll say them again because they're fucking true. Telling me I can't say it, making it illegal to say it, saying this makes me some kind of person that needs to be watched doesn't change the veracity of the statement. It doesn't make it less true just because they don't want you to hear it and they don't want people thinking it. And I hate to break it to these assholes, to whatever poor bastard gets assigned to be monitoring my stupid ass if I ever get successful and popular. You can't control people's thoughts like that. I know everybody always thinks they can, and to a certain degree, they're getting better at manipulating people's thoughts, and they're breeding stupid in a lot of ways and telling people that they're doing things that they're not for them, and there's a lot of morons out there that just suck it up, but the pushback is coming. The shift is coming back. They went too far, and now the pendulum's swinging back, and unfortunately for bloated, pathetic bureaucracies, they don't adapt real well. They don't get to be bloated by being good at change. They do it by feeding and feeding and feeding until they can no longer sustain it. And it happens a lot throughout history. If you sit back and look at the history of any major empires in the world, they go through shifts, they go through phases. It happens, and it's happening here, and that's just kind of the long and the short of it. In a lot of ways, all this overreach and the attempt to suppress these things and stop them from happening are just sort of the death throes of what's the existing order of things. And I'm not saying that trying to encourage any shit to happen. I'm saying that as an observation. It's just the way I see things. It's almost inevitable, really. It's kind of sad in a lot of ways, but there's always potential for something better to, grow back from the ashes or whatever. I mean, I'm not trying to use too much apocalyptic imagery here because I don't think it's anything that significant or that severe. But I do think there's a good chance shit's going to happen. If you look at in deeper detail into a lot of the shit that's being done by the central bureaucracy, it doesn't bode well. It doesn't sit right with a significant number of people in this country. It's not going to be some just sort of everybody's going to roll over and let it happen. We've seen it happen throughout history in other places, and a lot of us still fucking remember. So they may actually be precipitating the very events that they think they're trying to prevent. Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that one of these days the overreach is just going to be a little too much, and it's going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, wake the sleeping giant, whatever ridiculous statement you want to use, and shit's going to happen. I would really prefer it didn't, but I think, there's storm clouds on the horizon, I guess. But again, derailing my train of thought here. So, yeah, I really don't see how this administration can justify releasing somebody known as the Merchant of Death, who was a actual criminal who provides weapons and arms to enemies of this country in exchange for a third-tier celebrity who got caught willingly violating a drug law while still leaving tens of thousands of American citizens in jail for the exact same laws, that somehow getting this person back to the land she doesn't appreciate is more important than all the people that are here locked up for some bullshit. So yeah, that's just kind of what's going on in this since the last time we talked. The country's ridiculous. It's a clown show. It's still the land that I love and my home. I still wouldn't pick to live anywhere else in the world because at least here, theoretically, we have the opportunities to change. And it may not be the best place in the world, but it's a hell of a lot better than most of it. And I don't want to leave you guys with some big negative rant. And like I said, the thing is, we have to take responsibility. We have to embrace our freedom, but that means taking on the responsibility that goes with that freedom. So we need to stop trying to save the world. I mean, someday, somehow, people need to be held accountable. The system needs to be fixed. But we can't do that. There's not going to be some giant, third act, grandiose movie level bullshit going on here. The way we fix the world is we start by fixing ourselves. You got to start locally. Get your own house in order first. Get your own affairs in order first. Get yourself set up where you can be independent, where you can have the freedom to do the things you want to do, where you have a wealth of, where if you decide you need to have some time to go do something, you can go do it without having to worry overly much about it. Start a business, start a service, do something, get yourself some extra income coming in so you're not completely beholden to one source, so you can get your shit together. And that'll allow you to get your house in order. Once your house is in order, then you can start worrying about your neighbors, and you can help your neighbors. Don't try and force them to live your way. Don't try and, say, hey, look, I did this and this is the right way, so you need to be doing it. That's not how you don't win hearts and minds by bragging and forcing people to do shit your way. What you do is you live a life that is enviable and worthy of someone wanting to emulate it, and then you help them achieve those same things. And you got to remember, people aren't always going to achieve shit the same way you do. So live a life that people would want to emulate. Be better, do better, help yourself so other people will see how you're living and want your help to live that way too. And that's how we overcome this bullshit. That's how we get around it. It's not screaming and yelling and ranting and fighting. It's living a life that's enviable and worthy of desire, so other people will come to you and you can help them. And don't do it looking to, do it because it's the right thing to do. You don't do it because you're expecting something back from them. Then you're not helping. Then you're selling your services. And there's nothing wrong with selling your services as long as you're upfront about it. But like I said, you need to take care of your own house first. And once that's done, you can worry about trying to save the world. And I guess for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord, come and interact, be a part of the show. Buy the merch, support your favorite creator, or support me. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.